Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Files Obscura podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Anchor app. If you're like me and probably didn't know where to go to start a podcast or didn't know what to do, then you'll be very glad to hear that the Anchor app is free to download and gives you everything you need available on your phone or your laptop. And you'll be given all the tools you'll need to edit, to play music in the background, to have live guests record your episodes with you, and so much more. Anchor also allows you to distribute your podcast anywhere that you want to be heard, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the list goes on. I know ourselves, so far, we have at least 7 platforms. And another great thing is that you're able to start making money for your podcast with absolutely no minimum listenership. So if you're interested in starting tomorrow, you can also start recording advertisements tomorrow if you were so interested. But everyone goes at their own pace. All you need to know is that this is everything you need to make a podcast and so much more to help you along the way. It's user-friendly and easy to figure out, as time goes on and you figure yourself out. So all you need to do is go download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, that was anchor.fm to get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Files Obscura. Once again, I'm joined today with Vlad. My name is Aaron, for anyone who is new. And today, I wanted to kind of try something that had been on my mind whenever I first conceptualized this podcast, which was really to just open, a dialogue and just discuss, general topics. Now, I don't want this to be something that we do every week or so frequent, it kind of just dispels into, random conversation for too long every week. But I wanted something that we could do, once in a while, and me and Vlad haven't really determined, how frequently we'll do, discussions like this on a more macro scale, but it's something I wanted to do, something he was open to try. So today, I wanted to take a look into, online cult personalities, the ever-expanding VR world that we live in now, and how society as a whole is going to take these and change in the future, especially with the wake of this pandemic forcing everyone inside. And I hear tales about people escaping to VR, to kind of, get some sense of attachment and human interaction again is something I've personally been seeing. But, before we get into it, just how you been doing, Vlad?
Doing all right, not too bad.
Yeah?
Yeah, just, relaxing, watching TV, usual.
Yeah, I've been trying to do the same thing and just on my free time, just, really focus on this. And in the past week when I brought this idea up to you, have just been so just laser focused on all kinds of videos and movies that touch on the topic. Like I recently watched the first Matrix again. Always a good one, always a classic. But I've also been watching Netflix shows like Altered Carbon to see how that really takes use of virtual reality and blend it over.
There's a few good Black Mirror episodes that deal with the topic.
I heard, but I didn't watch it. I'm not a personal fan of Black Mirror. Yeah. I've watched a couple episodes and it was, okay, but it was not my personal cup of tea.
That's fair.
But, just really, like I said, just been absorbing myself into this material just so, I can kill some time and, have, enjoy it, but also so I can really just see, different people's interpretation of how the future could hold, what seems more likely, what seems less likely, in my personal, take on things. But, pleasantries out of the way, we got some quick information to go through. Sorry, we have been, in our own lives, we've just been kind of drained. I have probably been drinking the past 3 days just because, there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So I've, took last night to try to really just sober up and feel better. I'm just not 100% right now, so I've been kind of spacing out. But I'm fine, I haven't thrown up or anything. I've been good. But as always, let's start with 2 truths and a lie. And this was actually kind of harder to write because this is such a generalized topic, but there's enough information that I could really pick some things out, especially when we talk about VR, because it was a lot more in depth than I originally thought. You could obviously periods of regression, but it's kind of hard to really define such a broad topic as we'll see. But first statement. Okay, we have the Sword of Damocles. This was a very crucial moment in VR technology and its progression. It was used to make a head-mounted display, which had already existed before this time, but really be connected and interact with the computer, which at the time, had not been done before, and it really expanded the possibilities of what we were interacting with from this point on. Because now, instead of just seeing an image that is displayed on the screen that you can move your head around in the world, you can actually interact with things now, that are created artificially. Obviously, a very, very crude form of what we have now, but, as all things happen with technology, it progresses over time and got better. Then there's statement number 2. Cults have begun to, they've existed for a very long time. But cults, especially in the information age, they've begun to transform, and now they exist online. With that, like that's already a thing, and it just you'll see how it can change us and how you can become susceptible to it. However, with statement number 3, little thing that I kind of got surprised with was that modern online cult identities that people form and all that in their little groups are actually easier to escape because, there seems to be some physical, connection that is needed to really solidify that. However, being that it's online, it's a lot easier to remove yourself from it as soon as you push technology away and you can just, escape into reality and really think without somebody berating you physically, in your ears or with their hands, So, those were 3 things I found. One of these are a lie. Vlad, which do you think it is?
I think it's the first one.
You think it's the Sword of Damocles?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't know which ones you guys chose, audience, but Vlad here thinks the Sword of Damocles, it either wasn't important or didn't exist.
I don't think it existed.
You don't think the Sword of Damocles existed? No. All right, well, we're about to find out which is the lie. But first, a little quick overview on cults and how they, behave and act, because yes, they are still a very real thing. They do, exist now, and they can affect you at any point in time, even if it's not a named cult or a well-established cult. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Doesn't mean these behaviors can't be used to manipulate you, even on a small scale, even on a large scale. To really understand what cults are, kind of a general characteristics, they got three defining traits that you can really use. The first trait is that it is a group or a social movement with a charismatic leader who's authoritarian and even can appear divine. They're the go-to holy good guy in your view. They have all the answers. You can rely on them. They'll take care of everything. That's characteristic number 1. Characteristic number 2 is that there's some form of indoctrination system that's used to reprogram you, to alter the way that you think, that helps reinforce this mentality of, your charismatic leader and that he's taking care of everything so long as you believe unto him or her. And then number 3, which is, what we associate most with, cult-like groups, is that they exploit their members, either through financial means, sexual means, or various other things that they deem important, whether it be your time, your labors in the field, whatever it may be. But there needs to be a careful distinction, because the way that, modern psychologists and sociologists define cults is that it comes from their behavior over belief, so you can have a group or an organization or a sect of a church that seems distinct and off. However, it can still be not a cult because they may not display the same behaviors that you would see that would be destructive, private, and fearful of, the outside world and all that, you know. So, like I said, behavior is the important thing, And then, everyone, and especially me, have wondered from one point or another, how, somebody falls for this, Because from the outside looking in, it looks pretty obvious to stand away. But there's a slow build to these things, Usually has, 7 steps or key identifying characteristics that really, slowly pushes you in. And the first one is that they find people who are going through transitional periods, points in their life that make them, seriously vulnerable, either moving to a new state, starting college, going through a breakup, losing a loved one, that really puts you into a vulnerable state that opens you up to, any susceptible ideas. And they start with that, with number 2, the soft sell. It's the casual dropping or mentioning of your group's organization or meeting or bonfire or whatever, that you're welcome to join, you're welcome to come, you're free to do whatever. You can see how that starts going, and then you go there, and now you're in an isolated environment, that they can control the narrative, they can control your experience. They can make it a big party where everyone's drinking and everyone's fucking and everyone's, eating whatever food that they want or whatever they're trying to sell you. And it sounds great. You're having the best time of your life. You wonder how these people can live like this and sustain like this. And, it leads you open to your introduction to the divine leader. With big air quotes, divine, the centralized, charismatic leader who made all of it possible, and he's the one who, step 5, comes in and starts telling you, about the enemy that's outside. That idea of the enemy is incepted into your mind, from this point on, and you really get absorbed in the idea, that this is where you're safe. These people around me are my family, and I'm, they're doing everything they can to protect me, and I'm going to do what I can to help them, at whatever cost, because they care so much about me. And all these ideas are reinforced, by the biggest, catalyst, and this is the peer pressure around you. Mm-hmm. Not only are you thinking this, everyone around you is thinking this, and you've got to conform to them, and they're going to put you in line to make sure that you're doing good. So everyone's reinforcing each other based off of one dude's, teachings or whatever he likes to call it. And all of this is to serve the sociopathic narcissist that they have as a leader, who implants the idea that he's doing this for all of you guys. But in reality, he's making you do everything for him and only him. He gets everything he wants at that point. And at that point, you are fully indoctrinated. You are fully incepted to this cult and will faithfully believe. Now, is it perfect? No. Nobody's perfect. And eventually, cults fall. Some take longer than others. Others, you unfortunately have died before you get that opportunity. Jonestown, I think, still to this day serves as the most powerful reminder of this. Over 900 people died. It's just, it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's true. And it exists even nowadays, but all hope is not lost, because there are 3 key things that'll break that remolding, that reprogramming, so long as you're, let yourself be open, and that's, finding, fallibility in your leader, finding out that they're wrong, and everything that they've done, can't be perfect if he's not perfect. Ooh, excuse me. And then, there's number 2, finding out that this moral guide that he's implanted, the way that you should live your life, discovering how hypocritical it can be in whatever circumstance, is usually amongst the most powerful things I've seen people, go through, that that changes their views, is to realize that what they're doing actually hurts or does the exact opposite of what they've been led to believe will help them this whole time. And then last but not least, is that, it leads to their entire reality and the construction that they've built up in their mind. It's beginning to shatter. You're stripping yourself of this reprogramming that you've been put in this whole time, and you're allowing yourself to be free.
Mhm.
You know, and this was just a basic outline of things that I've read about cults behaviors. And I read a few essays and papers online describing online identities, and when you break them down, online groups, I should say, when you break them down on how they act and how you fall into it, you really get absorbed into this idea because it's already preying on susceptible mindsets. Things or susceptible ideas that you're already more inclined to listen to, whether it be something about, the next steps in technology, or, political agendas, or health issues, or this, that, or the other. It could be anything, you know. Think about, essential oils to a degree, whether they work or not, you have this massive cult following that will swear by it up and down. I'm not here to say they work, I'm not here to say they don't. But, you follow these personalities and the people that are talking about it, and then you throw somebody in there that may have a different view or say something to the contrary. Vlad, how are they treated most of the time,
Like essential oils, or just like
Just the people.
oh, the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're denied. Like you, it's funny because you've been saying all this stuff, right? And you
Yeah.
know what's been going through my head?
Hmm.
By this definition of what a cult is, I was probably in a cult.
Yeah.
Like I was a life insurance salesman, and a lot of a lot of the points you were talking about, you could check off.
Mm-hmm.
They have a charismatic leader that lives in a mountain, has a really nice house. They have a party every once in a while. They all regroup every week, to talk about life insurance, how you can sell it better.
Yeah.
You're trying to get people to sign up for life insurance. Anybody, especially the vulnerable, the people who don't have a lot of money, people who are struggling. They tell you to recruit these people.
Mm-hmm. Because they're susceptible.
I was susceptible. When I was recruited to sell life insurance, they straight up, like, they wanted me because I was the only bilingual person they knew.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a job. I was looking for a job at this time. And they told me how much money I could make. And they would have meetings. And most of these meetings weren't about the life insurance. They were about how the life insurance business can make your life better. This is all about making your life better. You
Yeah.
have to spend all this money, get all these resources. You spend money on leads. They don't give it to you. You spend money on leads.
Yeah. And well, it's important to understand that there is a difference between, fully fleshed, cults and, the use of cult-like behavior,
Yeah.
which I think you'd fall in category with more, but it's a big gray area in general.
But it felt very cult-like.
Yes,
it's
and
a very-
I can see that,
Yeah. And it's very damaging to a lot of people. I mean,
Oh, very much so.
You've heard about, like, what's it called? There's this one that it keeps popping up all the time. I don't know. There's a few different cults, and I mean not cults, pyramid schemes.
Yeah.
They're very popular, and they all work the same way. Once you're in one of them, you know how to recognize all of them.
Yep.
Because they're all the same. Somebody comes up to you. They're like, "Ooh, you're really good at this. I like your social skills. Oh, you speak Spanish? What? All right." They come up to you. They're like, "Hey, we have this meeting every week." I actually had somebody recruit me when I was working at Subway. This lady told me, "Oh, you're doing such a good job at your customer service skills. Would you like to get a job?" And I'm like, "This is kind of weird, but I do want a better job." So we had a meeting at a Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
We sat down and everything, and I knew it was a pyramid scheme as soon as she pulled out the paper. She showed it to me, and I could see all the steps.
You could recognize
and
it.
I was like, I don't know what you're selling. That's
But,
that's
yeah.
that's how you know it is one, because you don't know what they're selling. Most of the time, it's so vague and ambiguous. It's not about what they're selling. It's about how it can make your life better if you sell it.
And I fell into a personal situation like that last year before I worked at a Subway and met you and Leia and all that.
Mhm.
I got offered a job with Primerica.
Yeah. Oh, Primerica.
And
Yeah.
I just, I just humoured myself. I said, I'm not doing shit today. Let's go in. Let's see what this is about. Because I knew there was a large chance it was a pyramid scheme even before because, like I said, the whole time I had no idea what the fuck it was about. But I was curious. I was just saying, you know what? Let's see what he has to say. Maybe I can learn something about this for me personally, and apply it to me personally. But I'm not going to get involved with this.
Yeah.
So I listened. I was there for about 2 hours. Told them what they wanted to hear and got out of there. I was like, you know what? I'm never fucking doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the whole time, even whenever I got out of there, I still never fully understood what
they were
was selling. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was the biggest reason. The dude called me up like 3 days later. His name was actually Paul Wilson. Really, yeah. I
Paul
found
Wilson.
a lot of Wilsons around here.
I got a question. I don't know. I knew a Paul who was in the same scheme that I was. So.
Interesting.
Anyways, so let me tell you something. This actually ended for me, and now I think this is kind of important because how do you get out of this? At a certain point I was realizing that for the amount of work I was doing, I was not getting the amount of money I wanted.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting people to sign up. I felt like, hey, even though I have my license, I worked really hard to get my life insurance license.
Yeah, they sold you this whole pitch about how this is going to make everything better for you. You can relax as everyone's doing your work, and then you actually put it into practice, and then you realize I've got no money.
I don't know what
I've got no free time.
Yeah.
So
the funny thing is, like, the life insurance license itself was legit.
Yeah.
Life insurance, by the way, is a legit business. And you know what? If done right, it can be good. But we weren't, we were technically a legit business.
Yeah.
But the practices, they were culty. So I decided, hey, I can't do this anymore. So I'm talking to my boss. Well, so there's, like I said, it's a pyramid scheme.
Mm-hmm.
So you got, the person who hired you, the person who hired them, the person who hired that person. It just keeps going up and up and up. This organization is global. NAA. Look out for NAA. They're kind of dangerous because once you're sucked in, it's very hard to get out. So I decided, hey, I want to get out. Here's the thing, though. These people worked really hard to help me get in, or at least I think they did, or they think they did. They spent a lot of money to train me and everything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this isn't for me. This isn't working out. So when I told them that, they were like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, yes, I'm sure. I can't do this. I need a real job. And I didn't say it like that because I would insult them. But anyways, this all went on for a while. And then things kind of escalated because they wanted to sue me. Yeah.
What?
So they legitimately wanted to sue me because of the wasted money and everything. And I was like, look, I'll just pay whatever money. They wanted $200. Yeah, it wasn't that much. But I didn't have $200.
I get it, but it's like, why? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I was in this situation where I needed a job. I didn't want to work here anymore. I was done. I was completely done. My life I felt like it was falling apart.
Well, here's my question. Did you sign any paperwork?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of paperwork that gets involved, and I didn't know. Dude, it took me forever, and I felt like these people were friends to me. They were friends, or at least I thought they were.
Yeah.
And then this happens, and you feel attacked, and I never want to even do anything remotely like that. Even I know how to pick out a pyramid scheme now.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. And the thing is, a lot of people fall. A lot of people fall for it. And it's so heartbreaking when it happens because I know, it's a trap. And people who are good at this, I feel like they don't have souls, man. I don't know how you do it. They had me selling to people who obviously didn't need life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
They want to sell to everyone. It doesn't matter whether you need it or not. The elderly, the young, people who can afford it, and it's all just a bunch of trickery, man. You gotta you gotta talk smooth. You gotta talk like a salesman, It's awful, and
it's terrible. There's no lie in that one.
And it's not a cult; it's a pyramid scheme. But there's a lot of cult-like mentalities. Like I said, there's this dude who everybody basically worshipped. It's like, oh my gosh, I want a fancy car like he has. It's all about money. It's all about riches. It's not about helping people.
No, of course not. It never is. But like I said, I've been in my similar circumstance, but I kind of backed out pretty quickly. I've learned to wise up at a very young age. I have other, personal involvements that I'm not gonna delve into right now. It's kind of off topic a bit. But no, it's a very dangerous thing. Um, but before we go ahead and kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about VR and computers and all
Yeah.
that, I wanted to address one of the two truths and a lie real quick.
Hmm.
There is no proof or theory or any information out there that says being attached to the physical world right now makes you any less susceptible to
Really?
to escaping this cult like mentality. If anything, it reinforces it because honestly, we live in a day and age now where there's more smartphones than there are people to have them. Okay, we're never going to be away from technology from this point on, regardless of your social, your rigid social practices or just, almost religious like behaviors to be away from technology. I think that would be the only example that really puts you at that extreme end to avoid it. But we're never escaping our technology. We're going to constantly get notifications, and we're going to constantly search the same websites that bring us comfort. Whether it be a forum or a social app or something of the sort, or a video sharing site. They instead become like echo chambers. So you're constantly hearing the same thing because it's providing you that same feedback and stimulus that you've been craving the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're more likely to adopt the mentalities than to deviate from it. Because like I said, you're gonna be sitting there in your personal life. You could have just had an argument with somebody about a topic that you're very passionate about, where you have the adopted cult-like behavior. They could try to tell you wrong. Odds are you're just going to scroll past them, ignore them, or if it's an extremely heated debate, by the time you get that next notification from your groups of somebody supporting you, it's going to reinforce that mentality again. So it if anything, again, no research to say one way or another that I found, but in my opinion, if anything, it would be more detrimental. It would not help you. So that only brings the question of VR interactions, which hit us on a more personal level than just an online forum.
Yeah.
We as humans have been needing to, dreaming and needing to escape for a very long time. And I feel like it's important to understand, kind of the history of that before we just allow ourselves, to be open to discussion and really just, think about and brainstorm where things can go from here. So I guess the first place to start, is dreams. Now, I didn't write this in my notes because it's more just kind of, a rhetorical argument, about our need to escape, and in my personal belief, came from our ability to dream originally. Now, this, as far as we know, has existed since the dawn of humanity, where humans, we would dream in primitive worlds, and I would imagine we dreamed of better places to live, with clean water, with trees that bore fruit, and animals that ran aplenty, and nobody starved, nobody got sick, everyone got clean and drank water. And, I believe might be original utopian ideas, for primitive man, but it would never be something that added to our world in a way that we became dependent. If anything, it just added a little supplementary idea of something to strive for, moments of peace while we slept, So they added very little to our world, but we didn't rely on them yet. And then there become cave paintings, and then oral stories, and then written literature, and these would be the first big steps to transcend a alternate world of sorts, through time. And then that mentality of painting and writing stories, and then eventually making plays, and movies, et cetera, would eventually evolve over time. But again, all these things did was add a little bit extra to, our fantasized reality. We're not truly going alternate yet, or virtual yet, because there's not a true manufactured world. It's all still taking place in our minds. We are all still conceptualizing our stories and ideas based on these paintings and written works and plays and stuff of that sort. Most of it is still just us generating these ideas. but the need to escape, grows as time goes on.
I mean, the thing is, like, with all these things, plays, movies, paintings, it's all. I mean, whether we know it or not, it's about immersing ourselves in a work of art.
Yeah, exactly.
And even a play, when you're watching Hamlet or Frankenstein or a classic play like that, you feel like you're part of the story. You're seeing the story unfold, before you. And if it's really good, if it's a well-told story, you don't think about it as a play.
Yeah.
You don't think about it as like these are afters. You think about it like these are events that are happening before me, in front of my eyes. It's not virtual reality, but you feel immersed. You feel like you're there, and that's what we crave.
Of course,
as humans, we want more.
Well, like I said, that all leads back to the need or the desire to escape. Escape our troubles, our problems in the world, the mundane of it all. Mm-hmm. We're forced to exist, but we're reaching a point, especially now in our lives, where we can choose to exist in this world or not. Even if it's just for a moment, it's inevitably going to become more and more involved into our daily life. And, hypothetically, but inevitably, we will get to a point where the virtual reality will overlay on our modern days, whether we use glasses or contacts or implants or whatever we have in the future. They would, provide an overlay into our modern world, and they'll become blended, which will open up a whole new can of worms, which we'll discuss in a minute. But, as of now, the farthest we can escape is the stories we tell and the pictures we show. But in 1838, a man by the name of Charles Wheatstone discovered, a specific illusion of the mind that allows us to trick the brain to perceiving 3D perception in a 2D world. Mm-hmm. He did this by creating a type of glasses, I guess you would, and display two slightly different pictures at 45-degree angles, and allowed a mirror to come and reflect those images into each of our eyes, ocular receptors. And having two slightly different images come into different eyes created the idea of a 3D image in our head. So it's the first time we've got a stereoscopic view of something, which in the following year, in 1939, he patents the stereoscope, a device used to view, such a phenomenon. So this was the first, I guess, push or attempt into, a VR world, because it's the first time where we are taking something outside and forcing our mind to construct an image rather than letting our mind take information in and construct our personal interpretation. We are fooling the tools, I guess you can say, that generates perception, our senses. Yeah. And since we as humans rely mostly on our sight, it's pretty easy way to go. But then, decade passes, and in 1849, a Sir David Brewster sold a advanced, headset, stereoscope that instead would take, instead of reflecting an image off of mirrors, it would be a wooden box that had glass lenses in the front and a sleeve that allowed you to change out images that use natural light to show them into your face. So it really created a more well-defined viewing experience based off the same principles. Then, in 1929, about 80 years later, is whenever we get our next big, serious push, with a man by the name of Edward Link. And he creates the first flight simulators that were used and bought by the military at that time. Each one was worth $3,500, and the military at this time bought 6 of them. These flight machines would use, gyroscopes and vibrations to really interact with pilots, to simulate turbulence. They would have a visual display that allowed them to look around a virtual cockpit and had different sound effects that would give off warnings and stuff like that.
Not too different from what we currently
but very primitive version. But in the following years, they went from 6 units sold to, I believe it was several thousand units being sold to train pilots for the military. Yep. As they wouldn't need to train in an actual airplane anymore, it also reduced the risk of user error. Mm-hmm. which is, very important.
Yeah.
Kind of don't need people dying. In 1930, a writer by the name of Stanley G. Weinbaum, he writes a story called Pygmalion Spectacles, very outdated story, but it was, a mention that's worth bringing up about the idea of VR this early on, because basically, very brief story, or synopsis of the story, is that exists in this universe a pair of glasses that allows you to view and perceive whatever you want, basically. Sounds kind of familiar now.
Very familiar,
yeah, but back then it was a wild sci-fi story that had no real basis in reality. So they thought. But then, in the 1950s, a man named Morton Heilig creates the Sensorama, which was kind of neat. And all this really did was that it added scents, smells to the overall experience. It still had stuff playing auditory noises and visual perception that would get you involved in the story. The creator, Morton, actually created 6 personal films for this experience. And what they would do for the smells is that there was a fan that would blast certain, olfactory, chemicals that would give you that perception of scent to help you get more involved in the story, which is really smart because our sense of smell is amongst the strongest right behind our hearing, but we primarily focus on using our eyes, which is why we don't notice things as well.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is. But we don't really see anything like this, again, ever. It was an interesting thing I found. It was worth writing down.
Pretty sure the last time somebody tried that was like the fourth Spy Kids movie.
I don't know.
It was gimmicky. Nobody liked it.
Probably.
Yeah.
But then the 60s come. In 1960 is whenever we get our first official head-mounted display, and it was called the Telesphere Mask. It was also made by Morton Heilig. But this is the first time that we have a headset that we can put on that, digitally gives us, something to look at.
3D image.
Yeah. But, it won't be till the following year, 1961, whenever a company called Philco introduces motion tracking. So that way that this display can really help carry, and move with what you're looking at. Think those panoramic shots that you'll find on Facebook.
Yeah.
This was the first time that was done, to track where you're looking. Yeah. Then in 1965, is when the concept of VR as we understand it today was first introduced by Ivan Sutherland. He was a computer scientist, and his word for it was called the ultimate display. Now, his, kind of more philosophical mention of it was to the extent that humans would be able to create physical manifestations from this virtual world. If you imagine a chair in this virtual world and construct it virtually, we could have a technology like nanites that would construct it, and we would sit, be able to literally sit in it. Then he also postulates that in this world, that makes, virtual bullets that much more dangerous. So pros and cons. Really things to think about. So, and then, in 1968, the first head-mounted display was connected to the computer. Prior to this, all the head-mounted displays were pretty independent. But this was the first time that they threw one to a computer, and this is where we get to the Sword of Damocles. That is what it's called. Yes. The Sword of Damocles, the personal story, it was about, the fear of power and stuff like that, I believe.
Yeah.
I didn't look too far into it because I didn't want to go into a different rabbit hole. But yes, that was
that was real. Okay.
That was a very real thing. It was a very important part because this was the first time that we allowed the possibility of a computer-generated world to be interacted with. And that happened in 1969 by a man named Myron Kruger, whenever he started to record and demonstrate, computer interactions using VR from what he called video plays, which were recordings of his interactions in a virtual space. And in 1987, there was a man by the name of Jaron Lanier, who is the guy who popularized the term VR from his company VPL, or Visual Programming Lab, a company that he personally founded. Fast forward a few more years, and in 1991, virtual reality arcade games, are really being pushed. And I never personally went to an arcade, so I don't have that experience. But this is where they're really starting to be pushed into, widespread media. Everyone's enjoying it, and, it's a hit. And in 1993 to 1995 is whenever Sega and Nintendo plan on launching their own VR projects, but both of them flop. Sega's VR for the Mega Drive looked promising, but they never truly went to market because it's never got past the prototype phase. So obviously, if something doesn't get past prototyping, it's not ready to sell.
Yeah.
And Nintendo took a bigger risk with their Virtual Boy.
Yeah.
And if you know the Virtual Boy, it flopped horribly.
The big old red screen.
Yeah, there's no motion tracking. It wasn't a head-mounted display. It was kind of a stand-alone thing with terrible red and black graphics. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
Even for the time, it was just horrible.
I don't know if you've seen what the virtual reality arcades looked like back in the day.
I saw some pictures whenever I was researching this, but like I said, I never personally experienced it.
It's leagues better, and I've never used one of those, but honestly, I'd be open to it. It looks interesting.
It would be fun.
It looks advanced enough to be playable.
Yeah.
Well,
I've seen a couple of things that stuff like Main Event or other private arcades that I've seen across the country because I travel occasionally and I eventually plan on doing this on the road whenever I do travel. So we can.
The Dave & Buster's has a few different.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, I've been to it. They had a really cool VR roller coaster. Actually, do you recommend it?
I've been on those VR roller coasters. Very fun, very interactive, and. Kind of surprised me the first time I rode it, with it throwing me around everywhere. But, at this point, they're a novelty,
Yeah.
There's nothing groundbreaking about them. But, it is what it is. But fast forwarding out of the 90s, at 2012 is, whenever you can find Oculus Rift Kickstarter. That's whenever they first launched. And they launched for a device that they said they can use to train people from the military, firefighters, help medical professionals, and etc. The possibilities were endless. Their Kickstarter went up for $250,000, and they got well over 10 times their original goal. So now, 2 years later, Oculus is this big next thing that's bringing out the question of VR and how that's affecting us. And what it can do and what it's doing for the gaming industry, what it's doing for the movie industry, and just how it's changing us, socially. In 2014, this is when Facebook buys Oculus for $2 billion. And Facebook, despite my personal opinions, they are still smart. They know a good thing when they see it.
Yeah.
So this was for me personally. Whenever I was like, okay, no, this is a big thing. It's not just going to be a novelty. This could really affect how things change. And, we have all the sci-fi stories and TV shows that, really fantasize the idea, but now it's becoming a reality. With stuff like Star Trek's holodeck is a big, example of a room that can interact and project this whole environment to you. There's enough sci-fi stories that tell us how nanites might be the next step past, haptic feedback, to really give you those sensations and interact with you in that sense in a virtual world, which could be carried from one place to the next, because the nanites can stay within you the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just responding to a certain room stimulus or whatever information they're getting.
There's also Ready Player One, which, by the way, the movie itself, not my favorite movie ever.
It is one of my favorite books, though. I have it on Audible, and that was a long book compared to what I have.
I don't think it's Spielberg's best, but I will say the actual sci-fi concepts in the movie are really, really fascinating, because a lot of it does stem from current technology that we found, like the 3D threat mill and the haptic suits and everything.
And we'll probably talk a bit more about Ready Player One, because it does devolve a little bit into some things that I was questioning about what could come out of VR, and I wanted to draw on that, for example.
All right.
But yeah, no, very good book. You can find it on Audible. It's 15 hours long, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. All my other books were 8 to 10 hours long, and I heard that one. I was like, oh, shit. But I got through it in about a week, and Yeah, it's a really good book. I started it again. I've only finished the first chapter, so I can't wait to finish it again. It was a wild trip, even though I'm not from the '80s.
Yeah, yeah.
It was nice though because I do recognize a lot of the stuff that they were talking about. But to finish up the timeline real quick, not in 2016, Oculus now under Facebook releases the touch controllers for the first time.
Yeah.
So this now increased our interactions, with the digital world. We can now have, virtual hands to grab and throw and interact, with objects in 3D worlds. We, and with advancements to these, hand paddles or whatever, I know Valve created their own touch handles where basically you can let your hand go; they don't fall off, and it still gives you feedback even though you have no control over what the controller's doing. And then there's stuff like haptic gloves and suits that are well into the prototype stages still currently, but show promising results of what we could have in the future. You know, I've seen drawings and hypothetical representations of people creating gloves that aren't necessarily gloves like you'd think. They aren't weighted things like the power glove or anything like that, but they could just be, sensors on each digit of our hand that track how they are in relation to each other to give you more articulate touch. And, you could have the whole CPU on some wrist mounted display or computer board, so that way it doesn't take up a lot of room. You don't have to worry about weighted, wrist or hands or anything, and it could be kept at a more compact size. And then eventually, this wire design could be limited more and more and more.
I mean, currently, Oculus has this thing. It's the hand tracking on their headset. I don't know if you've messed with it before, but it's pretty fancy. It's pretty nice, but it's flawed. Like,
Yeah.
you put your hands together and the tracker goes crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine. But like I said, as time goes on, that could be eliminated within the next year or so.
Yeah, just give it some time.
Or we could create fully synthetic sleeves that are nothing but sensory diodes or whatever
I've
it is
seen
to
all
see relation to
sorts.
each other,
Yeah.
and then and then the rest of it is just whatever device or technology they use for haptic feedback, except it's on a much more intricate level, and you can feel more precise, sensations this way. And all it does is relay information to the headset and immerses you in more. But around 2016, this is also the time that the Vive was released by HTC. PSVR was released, for the PS consoles for their home use and all that, to make it easier for everyone. You don't have to go out and buy it's really expensive headsets. It's a bit cheaper. You can use it with already existing technology you have. And then the official Rift was released from Facebook around this time as well. And then last year in 2019 is whenever the Oculus Quest was launched, and when it was released, it finally introduced the first marketable untethered headset. You didn't have to have this long cord to a computer anymore. It can run by itself. That's what my little brother has, and that's what I was recently using to first immerse myself into true VR, because I never got to that point. I'm pretty not against technology, but technologically illiterate. And it's more out of just because my life doesn't really necessitate me learning. However, I do have a very big curiosity in it, which is why I'm trying to immerse myself some more. And this is obviously a big topic. We'll come back to it at another time. But more or less, that's pretty much the general history and all the milestones that we've made for VR.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your first interaction with VR?
My first interaction was, trying to figure out, how to use I'm blanking out the words. I used my phone at this time. I was with an ex of mine a couple years ago, and her sister for Christmas bought me, a very just cheap head-mounted display to put my phone in.
Yeah.
And I downloaded a couple of quick games. Was really just trying to figure it out. My phone had a hard time keeping up, and it was never really an involved experience. I could really only go into rooms and kind of look around and all that. So I wasn't really immersed into it, more as I felt like I was just viewing a panorama of some sorts, an interactive panorama, if you would.
Yeah.
But yesterday was my first time really getting into like a VR chat room and stuff like that, and interacting with people and interacting with objects, and it was radically different.
Yeah.
Very different about the worlds that I've seen people create, the personalities you'll find online, the different avatars that you can use, and all that. It felt much more personal and much more connected, in a way that I wasn't expecting or prepared for. I wasn't alienated. There was a couple people who were, trolls, but that's the internet, it's to be expected. So like I said, I more or less, just had a good time just, interacting with people. I've talked to them about the subject, get their opinions on it, which is part of what I was trying to show you before we were recording about the online personality that, is more cultish behavior. The girl, Cece, that I was talking to last night, she's the one who introduced me to this fellow. So that she and several other members in her Discord chat, had met with this individual before online, and that he's just all around just bad personality type, really cultish, and lies persistently about who he is and what he can do and all that. It's just, yeah. But she had expressed some opinions about the future, because she's actually a web designer, or not a web designer, an animation designer, because she wants to work in designing games and character models and stuff like that. She's currently at a college, I believe, somewhere in Europe, I believe French, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that, because I have a feeling like this might be a very important friendship. Assuming where it goes, because like I said, she has that insight on things that I don't have.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone more involved in this, in some aspect with this field, would have interesting insight, because like I said, my views center more on how we interact socially versus, the physical limitations and developments of, creating more authentic worlds and stuff like that, like she is, with her digital design.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my very first interaction with VR was actually at an anime convention, and it was a developer kit for the Oculus. It's very, very early on. So basically the setup was just a big old. It was extra bulky, by the way, super bulky. The image was super pixelated, and I was playing with an Xbox control in my hands, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, for our first interaction, it was pretty good, because that was the first time I ever saw a 3D digital world, in front of my eyes that I could walk around in. That was pretty cool. My second interaction, which was even more powerful, it was I think it was Valve's very first, the HTC Vive. It was the Vive.
Yeah.
And it was a lot better. It was at a friend's house, So this guy's big into computers and everything. He had his own setup, very fancy. My mind was completely blown. I felt like I was on something,
Really?
Yeah, because you're in here. I was in this very first game I played. It was some kind of like frisbee game where you were throwing a frisbee to another guy, and you were in this massive, huge arena. You're on top of like a hoverboard, right? And whenever you shift from side to side, you move from left to right. Now here's the thing, though. And I feel like an old person who just like discovered like some kind of hologram or something. Because when I started moving, I felt like I was going to fall over.
It's really disorienting.
It's very disorienting, but no, I think it did fall down a few times. No, because you're shifting over and your whole body's moving, and I felt like I almost felt like wind coming from one side or the other.
Yeah.
Even though there was nothing there.
And well, that also speaks to the fact that it's such a new experience for a lot of us. It's not yet so normalized that we are mentally able to differentiate, reality versus, the virtual.
Yeah.
So.
And then look at this. A few years later, I have my own VR headset.
Yeah.
I own an Oculus Quest, and I'm super used to it. I was actually playing VR chat not too long ago, and I forget sometimes how much fun it is.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, that's your experience and my experience with VR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's emerging technology. It's in public interest, and technology advancement at this point now, I believe, is the right catalyst and environment to introduce this. And like I said, especially because of, you know, the social distancing and everything that's going on with the coronavirus right now, more people are being pushed inside. And so people often, as we as a species and an individual always do, we have that need to escape. You know, so VR, you know, becoming more affordable and more popular is, you know, in my opinion, this is the right, you know, the right environment for something like this to really take off. And I believe it was more of a question of when, not if.
Now, on top
You
of all
know,
this, Half-Life Alyx did just come out, and
yes.
it's been like the biggest game for VR ever.
Which, finally,
Yeah.
can I just say we have a third Half-Life game for once?
Yeah,
you know,
dude, it's about time. And
even if they refuse to put 3 on it, I don't care.
yeah,
It's still a third game finally.
and it's really good. Like the ratings on it have been pretty impressive. I want to play it, but I don't have the hardware to run the game. But it's great for VR. The only problem that we're currently facing is all the headsets aren't selling that well because, well, first of all, they don't have any to give away. All the factories are closed down.
Yeah, all the factories that manufacture all the stuff are in the countries that have the biggest, you know, coronavirus outbreaks right now.
Yeah.
So it's not an issue of, you know, they just can't make enough to meet demand. It's that there's nobody there to make them at all right now.
Yeah, and on top of all this, there's this massive demand for VR and no headsets.
Exactly. But think about it like this, you know, because our social interactions are definitely going to be permanently changed after, you know, this outbreak.
Absolutely.
And, you know, that demand I don't think will diminish by much, if at all. So when this finally dies down, I think is when we're going to really see the biggest push for, you know, VR technology and other emerging developments, you know, from whoever.
Yeah.
You know, more practical applications too for, you know, doctors, military personnel, you know, firefighter training, police training, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So.
And I think VR is going to become more social as time goes on.
Oh, very much so. It's inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook is...
We're social creatures, and now we're approaching a point in our life where all we need to do is turn the click of a button on, and we can interact with whoever we want online, whether it's somebody from Jamaica, somebody from England, you know, or even my brother who probably lives downtown.
Yeah.
You know.
Currently, if we're talking about Oculus, because that's run by a company that knows how to do social... Yeah, they know how to do social interactions. They have Facebook and everything.
Yeah.
We're currently... I mean, they're working on Facebook Horizon, or Oculus Horizons or something. That's pretty cool, you know, being able to hang out with your friends. Thing is, even though it is going up, you know, people are buying it. People are you know, it's becoming more popular. I still don't have any other friends who have a Quest or...
Yeah, and like I said, I only have my brother's Quest right now, and, you know, I want to get my own headset. So eventually, you know, this podcast goes on long enough, and when we introduce Patreon and all that, maybe we'll be able to set aside, you know, for a headset for, you know, us to use for, you know, public chats and everything for Discord or whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, really try to expand, you know, our interactions with our audience online. You know, because like I said, I feel like this is inevitable, and it'd be stupid if we don't try to take advantage and really just, you know, occupy the space while it's early. You know, I still think we're in its infancy right now.
Of course.
So, you know, but, you know, now it's time to really start delving into, you know, our theories and beliefs about where we could go from here. You know, we've given a lot of our opinions and views on what we've already, you know, seen now, but... You know, technology is always getting cheaper and easier to get out in mass. So, you know, the only question is, where does all this take us from here? How does, you know, our social identities and interactions change when we go from the physical to the virtual before, you know, they blend and become the same thing? Hello, sorry about that. We took a second to save our recording, and we decided, you know, perfect time to go get some food. So we just had some quick Popeyes, and we are back. So when we last left off, we were talking about, you know, VI, and we're, you know, brought up the fact that now we're going to talk about, you know, where things can go from here and how that affects us, you know. And, you know, personally, I believe everything's going to happen in stages. You know, my personal belief is that where we are now, the first big thing that's going to push us towards, you know, adopting a more VR social life
is the pandemic that we're going through now. It'll provide the opportunity for everyone to be more online and still interactive while being safe. And this would create the perfect environment that will allow, innovation in this industry to really grow. But after this is whenever I believe, more, I guess, immersive, lives online would come into play, as technology rises and AI began to really become more sophisticated and, the networking, more intricate to allow computers to take over more jobs. It'll decrease what we as humans need to do for such a industrialized economy that will, I don't think in mass regards, but I think this is where, a lot of people will begin to see a shift in the type of value that they put out, as in they'll be making a lot more goods that they sell personally, but they sell it online. It could be handmade, artistic, crafts in this kind of culture, or online content as individual creators or private companies, spring up, bringing forth more entertainment versus, other industries such as steel or, computer engineering, or I should actually backtrack because I think, still the most dominant, type of job from this point forward would be, computer technicians and engineers and software developers and stuff like that. They're always, I think from this point forward is whenever they're going to be on the rise, and they're going to be the dominant labor force from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future, But, I think there's going to be a shift in how we address things as, as a public. There's going to be a shift in, the things that we produce now, because most jobs are in the next 10, 20 years will be taken over by a simple program. So we'll lose a lot of jobs in that respect, but I think that's where it's going to change us culturally, is that we're going to start developing an online culture like we haven't seen before, and there'll be a rise in, handmade goods. There'll be a rise in, the type of products that we sell online. A lot of them will be digital products, stuff made in the virtual to exist in the virtual, or at least assist us in a virtual way to our normal life, whether it be a type of program that we use to run over headsets that gives us a display, of our news feed while we're going on a walk. I don't know, but it's possible. And I think this is where, we are really going to start to see interesting involvements with online groups and personality types. Because I think once you reach past that level of immersion and reliance on, these social networks is whenever, bringing up these cult identities, which that mentality exists already online, is going to take a whole new shape again. As not only is it online, not only is it easy to hide yourself and with the endless expanse of the virtual world, it's going to be easy to run. Say your server got found out, shut down the server, pay for a new one that only the members who were involved know. Make it password protected to where only certain individuals who are in the know can get in, and it just, like I said, it creates that echo chamber virtually where everyone's just of the same mindset, everyone's talking the same thing. But because now you've added, some identity of the normal world, as in visual displays that we can see and interact with in the virtual, we might see this return of a more centralized figure at the start of these, and it would be a lot harder to pull people away from these instances, in my opinion. And that's where we're really going to see the rise of a lot of dangerous thinking, in my personal opinion, to come out of this, whether it be, a cult mentality around a certain product, or, certain movie, or, this, that, or the other, whatever conspiracies crop up online, I think it's personally going to change, a lot of how we think, and we are woefully unprepared, for what's to come. I don't know. What's your thoughts, Vlad?
My thoughts is that before we reach that stuff, because we're talking about VR and how it's advancing and everything, but something that we also have to realize is that it has to get into more people's hands. Because right now, not a lot of people use VR or haven't. But you're right, it is steadily getting up there. The thing that has to happen first is that it has to become comfortable for people. When these phones came out, not everyone had one. Not everyone had a touchscreen on their phone.
Yeah.
And now, every single phone has one. It's surprising when somebody uses a flip phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, then there was Motorola's recent attempt to reintroduce a flip phone that had a touchscreen.
Yeah.
All
sorts of stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But my thing is, you're talking about connectivity, and I don't think connectivity is going to be as big of an issue as we make it out to be, because
it's not about the connectivity. That's not what I'm worried about. I think here's the thing: a lot of people feel isolated in VR. You play the game, but you kind of feel like you're there by yourself. The truth is, it can be social. A lot of VR developers have been talking about getting stuff like your phone, or getting stuff like your keyboard or whatever, and finding a way to transfer that over to the virtual world, whether that's through augmented reality technology, where you can prop out basically a physical object inside your room, or digitally scan it with the cameras on the VR, so you can use it in your regular life. This is all a bunch of stuff that's still in progress. But the point is, and I've actually seen a few different, speeches that at conventions that they've been giving about the tech and where it's going, what the future of VR is. One thing they keep talking about is how they want to bring it closer to our real world, or bring the real world closer to the virtual world.
Yeah, what you're talking about is, a collision of two worlds, where eventually, and again, I believe inevitably, we'll get to a point where virtual reality will, it would become common practice that it's overlaid over our real world.
Yeah.
Which, brings up questions about how and that is, in my personal opinion, a step that happens later on that'll cause another small but important cultural shift, because now you'd have virtual spaces that overlay on our real spaces that we can visually interact with, and small businesses now no longer need to waste money on private companies at this point to make their own advertisements. They could create whatever on their phone with whatever free app to record or animate or whatever have you in this virtual space, and some program could be played, or that could be set in place where whenever a user walks by or is within a certain distance, or however they choose to interact with you, could reach out to you and be like, hey, this is what we have to offer, which could provide its own bit of humor, but changes how, actual companies interact with people. Small companies can now, make their own commercial advertisements to whoever walks by.
I think what we have to start looking at is the history of technology and how it's going to affect the future. I mean, think about it like this. When the internet came out, it was a way for people to connect with other people, whether it was down the street, across the country, or the other side of the world. This always amazes me to this day. Whenever you play a game and you're playing with a person from New Zealand,
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa.
Not just specifically New Zealand.
Specifically New Zealand. I had a friend from New Zealand. We played PlayStation together. But anyways.
I get what you mean. I got a friend that I made on Facebook who lives in Malaysia. I've known her for 6+ years. I couldn't even tell you, honestly. It's probably longer. And, I couldn't have done that without, Facebook,
Yeah. And that's the thing about VR. I think it's only going to enhance the technology we currently have. The same way smartphones enhance... you use your browser on your phone more often than you use it on your computer.
Oh, without a doubt. The first thing I think of is like, hey, I wonder how much this costs. Open up my internet app on my phone and just, type in, how much does what so-and-so cost,
It's an extension of us. It's an extension of us as humans. And,
it's also another thing, too, is people often ask, how does the internet work? And a lot of it is the fact that it's not an individual thing, in the sense of like I'm an individual person that can interact with you. It's many different individual things that are all connected to every other aspect, of itself. It's a network, and it's through this network, that we saw the first great innovation in the age of information. We were able to connect with people, but that connection grew slow at first, But now we're taking the same mindset, of building a network, a digital network that can, perform certain tasks on its own. And that's what we're applying to technology now. That's why we can have, all kinds of robots in certain industries that could, one thing I saw, for example, was a type of supermarket that could be well within the realm of possibility in the next 10 years. It's a type of supermarket where you don't have cash. It's a cashless thing. All you have to do is have the appropriate app on your phone. You go into this place. You pick certain things in the store. Either you point it out and add it to your basket, or you can go through the phone and set one up. And these automated machines, that you don't see are working behind the scenes to take all the information, to drop the correct items in the correct baskets, for these individuals. And they're all operating on a neural network. So, they're all getting the exact same information, and then they're taking these robots, finding the one that's closest to, the objective, and then that one will pick it up and then bring it over, and creates so much efficiency because you don't have to have each robot then determine individually how to best take care of this task and then relay it to the next person. Everyone knows at the exact same time. Every robots can perform simultaneous tasks with other individuals, and then at the end of it, you in theory you got all your groceries in one bag, and then you walk out. The store monitors and tracks where you are and who picked up what, and charges the correct account. Now all this is in theory. I saw a video of this hypothetical grocery store actually in practice. A lot of people said it felt weird because of course we're used to how we traditionally shop for everything. This was a big change in it. However, a lot of them expressed the ease and comfort and reliability of the system. And this is also like I said, a very scaled down form of the possibilities. You could use this in any kind of industry, such as Amazon, having factories that have almost no workers because all of it's automated, run by simple programs and machines, which are already in use to some degree in these warehouses, to really expand and modernize in the future. So when we talk about VR, and other neural networks, we may use them in robots, but they can also control completely digital AI, programs that we'll use online, and also change how we interact with people as we allow this technology to learn us. It may change, the type of personality and groups that we find on the internet. The friends that we are introduced online could be manufactured events, and it brings up questions, about us, like, should we let them do it? Should we let them, dictate who we talk to and what we view and stuff like that based on, prior experiences? Because, we could always have new interests. Yeah. Sometimes we learn things that we would, by complete chance or just randomness, that we would have never gone out of our way to discover ourselves, But then there's the argument, that you could be introduced to these same ideas, hypothetical, not important MacGuffins, from talking to other people that the computer designated you to talk and force an interaction with to some degree, and you can get the same experiences vicariously through them, because VR allows you the opportunity for once to finally view things in a perception outside of your own. I've seen videos of researchers taking to VR headsets that have cameras in the front and giving the other person the same experience, or the other person's experience. And they would, track each other doing the same movements and everything. And they explain, they took a man and a woman and did this in the video I saw particularly. And they were explaining, the height difference, the perception of their body when they looked down, and everything was just completely different. And it gave a new appreciation, for, their existence and to some degree that they said, so there's a lot that can be learned from this. So much of a general topic to talk about this. But like I said, right now, I'm just trying to focus on how it's going to affect us, socially as a whole. I think there's going to be a lot of political change. There's going to be a lot of ethical questions. I think there's going to be a lot of things that we won't really consider, discussing.
Well, it's funny because I believe every company currently working on VR has a different goal. And you know what? This is great. There's competition. We need competition in order for tech to grow. Now, I think it's. I'm going to look at a few different things that I've noticed. Valve is very secretive, but I was watching an interview with Gabe Newell,
Okay.
where he's talking about like where they want to take their tech. They definitely. He seems like they're going. It seems like they're going for something a little more higher than what some of the other places. Like Oculus is definitely not thinking about brain computer interfaces. You know,
No.
combining the brain and the computer and using whatever information we can gather from our minds to enhance the virtual reality experience. Of course, Valve is also a gaming company. They're not thinking about stuff from like a social point of view. They
Yeah.
are, but
They are, but in a different frame of reference.
Now, Oculus, they definitely seem, I mean, they're doing a lot of great stuff with the games, but from some of the talks they've had, they want to do a lot of social stuff, and this is the this is where it gets interesting. This is where our topic comes into play. Oculus is more of a consumer friendly company. They're it's very easy to pick up a Quest or a Go and just get into it. The ultimate goal for Oculus is to combine the real world and the digital world. This is a far off goal. This will probably not happen for a while, but the idea is it's intriguing because they were showing what it could be like if we managed to scan a whole human body, put it in a digital world along with an environment. We could use a computer to scan this room, put it inside your Quest or your VR headset, right? And then let other people enter your room.
Yeah, you create a digital recreation and apply it in the virtual world, and then go on from there.
Which, by the way, I was playing a VR experience where you get to see what it's like to be inside the ruins of a person's home after it got raided.
Oh shit!
Yeah, like it was a very interesting experience because you pretty much get to see what it's like to be a refugee.
It's always one thing to hear about it, to see a picture. It's a whole other thing to be, as close to literally dropped in there.
Yeah. By the way, the experience is called The Key. It's free on the Oculus Store, and at the very end, you get to see this place, and it's real. By the way, this is a 3D scan of an actual place, and it's a little surreal because you look outside the window and you see a building, and it looks real because it is real because detail on the floor and the ground, everything, the photogrammetry, it's really impressive, but it kind of puts you in this space where you for a second you forget where you are, and I think that's the thing. Once we get to a point where people feel comfortable, where you can bring in your keyboard to this virtual space, where if you sit down on the couch, you're not gonna bump into something. You're not gonna, the bookcase isn't gonna fall on top of you. You're actually sitting on your own couch, and then to be able to change that any way you want, that's the dream. That's the goal. But it is a thing that we, I don't know. I think about sometimes. Like, do we want it to feel too real? Like,
I think, and this will definitely, at some point, very, very long down, human history, this will eventually devolve from, real events to colloquial stories to developed mythos, how all these stories go down. And I have a feeling this will turn into a cautionary tale about, being fearful of the interactive, because like I said, with the introduction of VR and the virtual world as a whole, I think is what's truly going to change everything, because it's easy now to be able to separate things from country servers and all that, but the digital realm and the promise of tomorrow, I think are the two biggest frontiers that will never be explored. Because there's always a way to improve the virtual world and create, online identities and stuff like that. But that'll forever, I believe, change, the political landscape and, humans as a whole. Because now there's truly no borders that can stop us from interacting. We're going to get to a point where we'll, have VR that's so prevalent and internet connection so easy, especially, with VPN servers, becoming so commonplace now, where once they were a novelty and not something anybody really considered taking personally. Um, I think that's really going to open up borders, and you know, I personally, I'm a capitalist. I believe, in earning the money you work for. But I think because of this and in tandem with how AI is going to move in the future, I think the right environment is brewing that will move towards a socialist change, because truly, when we have machines that don't need anything necessarily doing all the work that we as humans need, you know, food will become easier, medicine will become easier to come across. If I want to interact with somebody, I can. I'm not sure how money will change if it stays in the future, but I think the need for it will change and drop drastically, and I think that's going to be, it's a scary idea to think about. I'm not going to lie, but I think to some degree it's inevitable. And to kind of circle back a little bit, the whole reason I brought this topic up to you last week in the first place was from the channel Disrupt, a very VR heavy and, futuristic, centered channel on YouTube. They had a video called, it was something along the lines of like the first VR cult or something along that lines. And when I first listened to it, open disclaimer, I wasn't watching it. I had it playing on the background, and the way that the video was edited, I did not know it was a fictionalized story. So when I brought it to your attention, I mentioned how some odd amount of number of people died.
I was surprised because
and I took it at face value, and then I replayed it, and I had that moment of how could I be that stupid.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I when I heard your story, I mean, I did believe it, but a part of me was like, how come I haven't heard about this?
Right? Because it really got you thinking for a second.
Because I do listen to a lot of VR stuff. There's a VR podcast that I listen to, and a bunch of channels, and I'm just like, yeah, I feel like this would have come up at some point.
Right?
But no, it is funny though, because it does kind of get you thinking, even if the story is fictional. What if?
Yeah, and that's where I felt it was important to talk about, because, if we can't take, like what we've learned from our last story, if we can't be proactive and preemptive in applying certain things about that could actually happen, how much worse can things get? Not how much worse will they get, but if open to the possibility, sometimes individuals take the chance and can really cause a lot of, harm. So that's why I think understanding how we'll evolve socially online and how that's going to change us will really dictate, what happens in the future.
I guess we should also ask the question, what would make a VR cult, if it were real, different from just a regular cult or a cult online?
Well, as we've already discussed, to manufacture a cult, whether in the real world or virtual, is really easy. Most of it boils down to, having, an echo chamber of sorts that reflects the same amount of information and builds your reliance on that because of peer pressure and, that everyone else is wrong mentality. It really breeds, open ground for any number of things to come up. Like the story that we just talked about with the VR cults from the channel Disrupt. What they were talking about is of an idea. And by the way, definitely check out the video. Video's great, definitely worth a watch. They make great content, both trying out stuff for the virtual world and or creating fictional tales of a hypothetical future. I wholly support the channel personally, but we are not sponsored, as awesome as that would be at some point. But the story more or less talks about this philosophy called, digital enlightenment. And in the story, it's the idea of transcending your physical body and having because your AI character will exist forever. Your avatar will forever be permanent, and therefore, in a way is transcending the physical world. It's not talking about true singularity where we go from a physical body, an organic body, to a technical one, or the digital landscape. But it was drawing from a similar vein. And in the story, the idea was so prevalent that almost 400 people died. And it was interesting to listen to. And like I said, once I realized it was fake, it really got me thinking, about online cults, the mentality that exists now, how that will evolve into more interactive social circles virtually, and how will this affect people in their personal lives? Because one key feature of a cult was the exploitation of its members, whether it be because, through information, private information, because that is one of the most valuable assets that we have, is our digital information and trail that we leave everywhere. Whether it could be our financial bank accounts, our home address, our birth records, whatever. More or less, everything about you exists online in some form or fashion. Whether it be public records, whether it be, through a hospital's online, server that holds, all your medical history, whether it be the bank teller that's transferring, money and loans, from wherever that holds your accounts, that's monitoring what goes in and what goes out, all that in some form exists online. So, it's very easy, and if anything, opens up the possibility of how to exploit people online in these environments. It could crush online businesses, it could crush people's social standings, in their VR groups, or whatever. As easy it is to escape, it's also incredibly easy to flood the internet with false information or, hearsay or rumors, so it goes either way, and in some aspects will alienate people, which brought me to a different question that I wanted to touch on really quick, is we'll get to a point where, the virtual reality will overlay into, our normal reality. But that made me think of, what about people who can't afford it? How does this affect, homeless people? I was homeless myself for a small period of time. And it's one thing to be homeless now, but then I imagined, what if I was homeless in a world that had another world on top of it, and I was alienated even more from that because I couldn't afford, the whatever futuristic glasses that I would need that are wearable wherever to interact with that.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point quite. I mean,
whether in our lifetime or not.
Yeah, and even if we did get to that point, like there, and I do kind of want to bring it up, like hopefully, like public libraries make whatever technology is necessary available for the public. Like right now, I mean, you're right. I
mean, it's possible and likely.
Yeah. But like, I don't know if it's so hard to say because we can't see the future. We don't know what, like, who would have predicted that the phone, this kind of phone, the smartphone that has the internet and it has your phone contacts and everything. It basically does everything. Is an essential part of everyday life. When you're going to work because of your phone. What everyone's doing, what your family's up to, when there's a family event. Like, all this kind of revolves around the phone. Our social lives kind of branch off from this phone. I mean, hey, I wanted to invite, like, if you wanted to come over, you'd have to use this first, the phone. You'd have to message me.
I mean, I could just, walk down the street and knock on your door, see if you were home. But, I could also not waste the whole time, just give you a quick text and be like, hey, are you home? You down to chill?
Exactly.
So.
And that's the thing. It's 2020. We don't. I feel like there was a pun there somewhere. We can't see the future.
Yeah, there is a joke there.
Yeah, but I don't know if VR is truly going to take everyone's life.
And in our lifetime, probably not.
No.
But that's why I believe it's important to discuss and dream about it and play hypothetical.
Yeah.
Because, if you at least allow yourself to be open to the possibility and explore where that can go, you can, take safe measures in the future, even if it's not for you. That's a big important thing, especially with our current generation, is thinking about what comes after us. A lot of generations before us were thinking about what happens now, what's going to happen tomorrow, but never really took the steps to think what's going to happen after I'm gone, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it's true, it doesn't matter. But because, we grew up in a generation that's known nothing but constant problems, everything from 9/11, everything from 9/11 to, currently now with the coronavirus outbreak, the Panama Papers, which is another topic I want to discuss in the future, but basically, very long story short, there was basically a global conspiracy of a bunch of rich people, celebrities, and political figures that were, cheating their tax, records and systems, making, saving more money, and they were doing it through a company in Panama. And this certain reporter, leaked the information and was later found dead. She was murdered. But, again, another topic for another time. But, it's really important to see where a lot of this will take us in the future and figure out how we could avoid these kind of problems.
The thing is, a lot of this, like, what becomes, like, popular, what gets used in our everyday life, all comes down to the people as a whole. Mm-hmm. If the people decide that this is very convenient, this is going to make my life easier, there's going to be a demand for it. There's a demand for it, more people are going to buy it, companies are going to build it, we're going to use it.
Well, think about it like this. We're, let's play hypothetical. Let's say it's 20 years from now. I'm, 20-something-year-old dude in the middle of college. I'm working at an intern. I get a call from my boss. He says, put on your headset. We're having a company meeting and everything. You work for a company with, 12 other individuals in this meeting who are from 7 different countries. Language translators are already commonplace at this, point. And your boss is giving you your weekly briefing about everything you need to do, and in this virtual hub, you can perform your whole job without ever leaving your house, It sounds kind of far-fetched, but at the same time, it sounds completely feasible.
I mean, currently everyone's using Zoom to talk about, or whatever, whatever service it is you're using. We're using it to get your classes in,
Yeah, exactly.
Like, my girlfriend's taking all her classes online. Everyone's talking about it over the phone or under a laptop. There's always a way to do it.
But, with VR specifically, like we touched on, there's a difference between, doing it and being a part of it online in the computer, and then truly being immersed in it. And it's that immersion aspect that I think is really the changing factor of all this.
I think what's really going to revolutionize this and make this more of a commonplace thing is if we find a way for people to get an experience from VR that they really wouldn't be able to get from their laptop. I mean, talking to people across the country who can already do that. What can you do in VR that you can't do on a laptop? And I think what comes to mind is that physical presence that you don't get from a screen on Skype.
Yeah.
Like, think about it. If we do get to the point where you can digitally bring in the real world to VR, you could have friends over. You guys, I mean, we can already do this. People can share a video and sit next to each other. Now, you could technically also do that with your laptop.
Yeah.
But the ability to actually be there, presence, I don't know. It all comes down to, like, how immersed do you feel? Do you feel like you're actually talking to a person? And when you're talking over the phone, you can hear their voice, but you can't see them.
Yeah.
You can express more emotion if you're using a screen.
Yeah, like FaceTime or whatever.
Yeah, but we want to take it a step further. We want to get as close as possible to having that person actually be there without actually being there.
Yeah. And that brings up, other questions, especially with a lot of, videos I saw. I was asking a question, about this being our next big addiction was VR, and how intuitive it's becoming and how involved we'll get to be. It brought me just one question is, at what point will our definition of healthy interaction change, with VR? The meanings of being an introvert and extrovert, I believe, will change as well with this. What we consider healthy interactions and usage of the internet will change because of our reliance and dependence on it, I think. But one thing you were talking about, is how well we can perceive information, also brings into questions about haptic feedback technology and how that will inevitably get better over time. Yes, we in VR, we're really focusing on 2 primary things: our auditory hearing, everything that, the environment gives us to listen to, and what we can see through the head-mounted display. But then comes in the question of what if we get, a suit, a skin tight suit, and, we plug it into this headset. Now people can come up and actually touch us in the virtual world and we'll feel it.
Yeah.
We'll get sensations of being hot, cold, sweaty, or, dry skin or whatever. We could probably feel somebody, surprising, like literally in the virtual coming up behind us and surprising us.
Yeah, touching your back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And all kinds of stuff. You can feel somebody throwing, a foam dice in the virtual world at your head. You'll be able to feel that.
Yeah.
And how does that extra level of involvement, that extra layer, how does that change, our perception, our addiction, our interaction with everything online? I can't say other than I personally think it will be the important step. Not that, we don't have it now, because we do have it now, but it's not commercialized. And when that becomes commercialized, I think is going to be the big step that really pushes us over the edge. I think we might teeter for a while. Things will get cheaper, but it's not fully integrated in everyone's life. But once we have this, I think it's going to be that final push, to really immerse us and blend the real world with the virtual.
Which, by the way, I think the world is ready for VR. I mean, you can see it.
We're already using it now.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I went to my cousin's birthday party not too long ago, and I brought my VR headset, right? And I showed it to my family. And the thing is, everybody got it. Everybody understood it. Everybody was impressed by it. I had a friend of the family who was trying it out, right? And afterwards, he was talking to his wife, and he's like, "Honey, I have to buy one of these." and actually, she responded with, "Okay, do you want this, or do you want to get that Street Fighter arcade?"
Right.
And it's like, yeah, because it is expensive. It is a little
it's not cheap right now, but
But when people try it out, they get it. They feel it.
They just intuitively know what they can get out of it.
Which, by the way, I'm not at all addicted to VR. It's not one of those things I do every single day. Every once in a while, I'm like, "Ooh, you know what? I want to play some Beat Saber."
Right.
But I think right now, okay, you go to your local Best Buy, right? They have the VR display. They have the Oculus that you can try out. That's how I got convinced that I knew I wanted to buy one.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching videos on it, and I'm like, "Ooh, this looks like something I'd be into." But in the back of my head, I was like, "But do I really want one?" Mm-hmm. Right? So I went to the Best Buy, and there was a guy there, and he's like, "Hey, you want to try it out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, I want to try to help this. Maybe it'll help make a decision."
Yeah.
I try it on. I do the Darth Vader VR game, right? And you see the dude right in front of you, and at that point, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I do want this. I can't get this from playing my PlayStation. I can't get this from using my phone. This is something that you can only see in VR. It's exclusive to VR."
Yeah.
And that's something that I think once people try it out, once they go to their local Best Buy or their arcade and they try it out and they're like, "Wow, this is something else," that's when you'll see the numbers going up.
Well, that, and I, especially, because Facebook does own Oculus, I think the way, at some point, and it's not something we really think about, but our social, websites that we use now and the apps and everything, I think at some point might also introduce VR into some extent, and that'll drastically change everything. Because these are the places that we go to socialize. These are apps we use maybe 50% of the day. Mm-hmm. And once they open up into this interactive experience that adds an extra layer to what this company offers, I think that's when things are really going to explode, for the better and for worse, So, I believe everything's going to come in stages. It's going to be really hard to adopt, I think, personally right now. But we're going to get to a point where it's just going to be, too good not to have it.
Yeah. And like I said, Half-Life Alyx.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to play Half-Life Alyx. People who are buying headsets, indexes actually, they're spending a lot of money just to play this one game.
Yep.
And it's the thing. It's the killer app. This is a concept that we've seen it before. When something comes out that you can only get on one piece of one kind of technology, like it's a PlayStation. I got a PlayStation because I wanted to play Little Big Planet, so I bought a PlayStation. Some people wanted to play Halo. They got an Xbox.
Yeah.
People want to play Alyx. They'll get VR. It's this thing that if you want to do it, you have to get it.
Well, yeah, and I totally feel you on that, and I think again, a bigger discussion for another time. When AIs get fully integrated into this virtual world, playing hypothetical. We've written about it in comic books with fantasy stories or sci-fi stories, and whatever have you. But one thing to mention is like a personal assistant, like Siri or Cortana or the Google Assistant on your phone. These could change, to be a virtual personal assistant, that could be augmented to look however you want them to look and actually interact and give hand motions. They could pop up in your real life,
I mean, that's something people are already open to bringing into their home.
Yeah.
If you told them, hey, what if this Alexa could like walk? People would be like, hell yeah, I want to bring it everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially, with shrinking these head-mounted displays that we see. I mean, I've already seen, prototypes for contact lenses for these head-mounted devices that can bring the virtual world into your real eyes. When that becomes, marketably affordable, how's that going to change everything? Because all you got to do then in the morning is, put in the contacts, a couple of eye drops, and you're good to go. You're connected to the world.
I think augmented reality is already more common than virtual reality. So
yeah,
people are very open to it. Like Snapchat filters, it's like, hey, I can put this thing on my face. It tracks my face. Okay, what if you do that with literally everything else? Use it to get directions. Like if you're just walking to a store, which street do I take? It might be easier to just see it.
Yeah, exactly. Or one thing that I did bring up with CC last night was, stuff like Google Glass, I think was an important, step that we've taken towards, this augmented reality, bringing the virtual into real life.
Of course, it didn't pick up like we thought it would.
Yeah, well, and it won't always, it's just how technology and advancements work. But like I said, I think it was an important step because it was the first time we've tried to bring up, a head display of some sorts, to augment our life. And I personally would love a set of glasses that, would have something like Google Maps and, an audio recorder or memos or something, some personal assistant.
I mean, we already have it on our watch. Dude, that's the thing that blows my mind every time. I don't know when something's going to become popular. We never do, because I never thought people would actually buy a bunch of watches that have like all the information you get on your phone. Like what music you're listening to, if you're getting a phone call, if you got a message, very simple stuff, your heartbeat or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah.
How many miles you've walked. The funny thing is, I didn't think that would quite
take off.
But
now it's commonplace as hell.
Everybody has one. Dude, that's at Subway. I'd see those things all the time. People would pay with them.
Yeah, they would ask us, hey, do you have Apple Pay? And, we tell them yes, and then they just bring the wrist to it. Boop. Yeah. And there you go. It's already paid for. They don't have to touch anything. Don't have to get your fumble with your wallet or anything.
That's the thing. People see convenience. And if VR...
People always see convenience, yeah.
And if VR is convenient, which it's becoming more and more convenient. My Quest is mega convenient, dude. I don't have to set up any cameras around my room. I just put it on and play.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's the thing. It has to be in people's houses, and it has to be convenient. Once it's convenient, everybody uses it. And then the rest, we don't know.
Well, that's where, early adoption really comes in handy with a lot of these technologies. It's not so much, that it has to become commonplace from the get-go. It's just from the ground up. You got to start, with a plausible reason everyone should have this. You got to make people believe that this, is going to, change your life. And, you also got to make sure you can deliver. And it's that early adoption stage that, I think is the most important to get people to believe in your products, believe in the next big thing. Is it always the next big thing? Not really. Does it change how we view things in the long run? Yeah. It really changes our perception of what we believe is possible and what we can do with it. And that's speaking of almost any technology. So, in discussions with monetization and stuff like that, I think it would be other rabbit holes such as like biochips was one thing I pondered about how it would affect us in the virtual when that becomes commonplace, or AIs was one thing I've mentioned here and there, but these are important future concepts that exist now but in their infancies compared to what they're capable of. And in the future, I think it's important to have these discussions to look back on, so we know what people, thought might happen, what actually happened, and what is still within the realm of possibility that we should be on the lookout for.
Yeah.
Like I said, in an effort to be more preemptive than, reactive.
My current prediction on how this whole thing is going to take off, because I really do believe it's going to take off.
Yeah.
I don't think it's amazing that it's still alive. It's amazing that people are still buying it. So what I think
It's the future, baby.
Apple. It's very simple, really, because Apple they can get any piece of technology and make it popular. They did it with the watch. They did it with the iPhone.
Well, it's not because of their technology. It's because of their marketing.
That's right. They're so good at it, dude. I don't have an Apple product.
Personally, I think they're a piece of crap, and I always will. I don't like Apple.
Yeah.
I don't like any corporation like that,
But if there's anything they're good at, is getting
it's marketing.
Yeah.
And I can't say otherwise. Hell, they've got a quarter of the world in their pocket.
Dude, it's this thing here where I really do believe they're going to make a VR headset. There's a lot of speculation about it.
I think it's possible, but I don't think they're putting all their eggs in that basket yet, because they're focusing primarily on media outreach with their, Apple TV and stuff like that, and all the, programs that they're focusing on. But, their phone and other technologies that are interactive like that, their computers, are what they're focusing on primarily. They're very much aesthetic over,
Yeah.
Output.
It's also very user friendly, which, like I said, if they release oh my god, my aunt's gonna buy it. I know it.
Yeah.
Like they release VR heads, my aunts can buy it.
I personally, think that that's a very dangerous way to lead a company, because you're, without saying it in words, I personally think that that's basically admitting that your audience is retarded by making it overly user friendly. You're assuming that, they're incapable of using other features that are more commonplace and stuff like the app or the Android, or Microsoft's, almost anything.
Well, I think you also have to keep in mind, I don't think they're, for sure, PCs...
Well, it also plays on what you said, people seek out convenience over almost anything.
Yeah, the people who are buying Apple products aren't looking for a computer that can run all sorts of stuff.
And fair enough, and I've accepted that's why.
Yeah.
I just think, as a person, as a individual, I think that's dangerous for us to just willfully accept that. I think that leads us to be stagnant, but I also know why, people are like that. I know why it works for a lot of people. Because you're right, not everybody needs that. Not everybody has the mindset for technology. I'm definitely one of them. I'm trying to learn, but I make no claims about, what I can do or who I am. So I get it. I just think it's not a good personal practice to have.
One more thing. I also feel like when VR picks up, it has to be able to merge with everything else we already own.
Yes, very much so.
Like the way that that Alexa or Siri or whatever manages to tap into every piece of technology you have inside your house. Whether it's your TV, the lights in your house, it manages to tap into that.
Well, I think at some point, in the same vein of thinking, we'll reach a point where phone companies will, really be the big provider, or internet companies will be the big provider that will have us connect to our phones, which could act as a hub towards any home network that we have, or the glasses to do that independently, depending on the company or carrier, whichever market that is at that time. And in some way, yes, it will be an interface that connects with everything.
Yeah, so a VR headset that can connect to an Alexa, that right there, that's going to be what gets people to get it, because it's like if you can talk to an Alexa and tell it to start or end the game or start up a program, anything like that, it's going to get people's attention. If you're able to use your phone. Actually, there's already some people who are developing technology for that, where you can use your phone in VR. Be it it's not like you're pulling it out.
It's not a physical phone, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff like that that I think is just gonna make it easier for people. Like, hey, I'm playing this VR game. How do I check my phone? Oh, you gotta take it off. Don't make it bulky. Make it simple. So there we go. It's basically just make it easy for people to use, connect it to an Alexa, make it slim. It has to be slim. That's super important for people, because even now, I'm playing games, and every once in a while I tap my head. I'm like, what the heck, I was boxing, and now I feel like, but it's And they are getting slimmer. I've seen different models. They get slimmer and slimmer. I've seen ones where it's basically like 2 little cylinders over your eyes. I think it's going to pick up. It's inevitable at this point. How far we've gone with it, and just word's getting out. Word's getting out real quick.
You know, and kind of just to wrap things up a bit. This technology is inevitable, and there's multiple different ways that this can go about in our future. There's a lot of challenges that would need to be surpassed in our opinions that I feel, although inevitable, would be the challenges for what brings it into social, indoctrinated by the, social mass and, becomes commonplace to use. I think it's going to be a slippery slope for us to get to that point, but, it's going to get there anyways. It's like a boulder rolling downhill. It could travel many different ways to get downhill, but either way, it's getting to the bottom,
Yeah.
And I think that's really where it's going to come with us, and that's why it takes a lot of pre-planning and a lot of questions being asked and a lot of hypotheticals being played out for us to really navigate this as best as we can. It's not going to be perfect. We're always going to have mistakes and hiccups, and there's unfortunately, inevitably, there will be tragedies in some regards, whether it be socially, financially, even mortally, if God forbid it ever happens.
I mean, we've seen it with other stuff, dude. Cyberbullying is very common, and
I mean, humans will be as we are,
dude. Cell phones make blackmailing so much more easier than it used to be, dude.
So imagine, all the stuff you do online, how easy that is to spread, how easy that is to spy on when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, dude. That's the thing. Like with anything new, I don't think we should be afraid of it. No,
I think I agree with you. Being afraid, is probably the worst thing we can do.
But we should be cautious. Like, if anything like this happens, like, always with the internet, always be careful.
Oh, of course,
dude. It is it can ruin people's lives in an instant.
Oh yeah.
And
well, that's quick tangent. Is when we get the website finalized and everything, and we start our own Discord services or servers for all this. I want us to get a VPN for the company.
Of course.
So, to make sure that we always keep ourselves safe as we explore the digital realm as it's evolving in our generation.
Yeah.
Because I have so far gone this whole time without it in my life, and I'm reading more and more horror stories of what happens to people when their stuff online is exposed. It's not fun. It's not pretty. People lose their entire online identities and who they are. Bank statements, public records easily found as soon as somebody knows where you are and who you are. But like we've said, it's going to ever be changing. How we interact socially online is going to change. Demographics, when it comes to online audiences, is going to be a whole new task. It's just, I think now more than ever is when it's going to be important for us to adopt personal practices in our lives that will carry on into the digital world. But, that's just me. So, we could probably talk this subject to death,
There's so many things happening.
So many things. But, we've opened that can of worms today. We'll probably touch on it another time or something related to it. Because like I said, there's, biochips that we can talk about. There's emerging medicines in the future with CRISPR or 3D printing. There's, AI and the emergence of how that's going to change our industrial world and the labor force and all that. All kinds of topics to talk about, Just so broad of a subject. It's kind of hard to wrap your mind around everything you want to say right now.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a few different things too. But honestly, I think we got over the most important parts of the discussion. Like I said, Sony's doing VR stuff. The brain neural interface stuff from Valve and Tesla. Sorry, not Tesla. Musk. Elon Musk. He's got his whole thing. So everyone's thinking about it. Everyone's working on it. And the future, well, who knows? We might have to touch upon this topic in a few years if anything changes in terms of the landscape.
Yeah, and we'll probably like I said, maybe let's play hypothetical. 2-3 years from now, next big break, we'll probably cover it.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
but
yeah.
you know, like I said, I don't know when's the next time we're going to do a more macro topic like this and general discussion. But you know, because I want to give some breathing room between our normal topics and the way that we handle things. But, you know, I really wanted to explore with this and just, you know, really open up discussion and just see where things go.
Yep.
You know, really get people thinking, even if they disagree with us, you know, what could happen, you know? So, you know, just another way to get all that information out there.
Yeah.
So that was a really, you know, kind of an interesting discussion topic, you know, change of pace. But I personally enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't know how often we will be doing such a discussion like this. You know, it's a little more open-ended. Could be a month, could be every 4 months. But I hope you guys really enjoyed it yourself. You know, what about you, Vlad? You know,
really,
kind of change things up a bit.
Yeah, I really like talking about this, especially since it's something I'm really invested in. There's actually a whole podcast that focuses on this very subject. F Reality Podcast. It's on YouTube, it's Spotify, it's everywhere.
Okay.
I'm only bringing it up just in case anybody is interested in VR and they're like,
yeah, VR specifically, and
yeah,
you know,
because that's a whole lot of stuff you can talk about.
Of course,
Yeah.
there's so much you can talk about it, but we like I've said, we discuss more, you know, just general taboo, you know, morbid or just, you know, obscure curiosities and other things that really capture our attention. So,
which honestly, this particular subject, it feels a little out of place with the last 2 episodes we did.
Yes, but, you know, the reason I brought it up was because, you know, there is no better unknown than the future.
That is true.
It is the only thing that will forever be unknown. You could have plans tomorrow and then get hit by a car. You could win the lottery. You know, the first person, you know, to land on Mars could happen. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, you truly never know. It's always a guessing game. You're just waiting for that moment to happen. Which is why, you know, this, you know, topic felt, you know, good for me to really delve into. Because then I can kind of just sit there and speculate and just, you know, hypothesize, you know, what could happen.
I love this topic, by the way. I think we should talk about tech more often. But
of course, me too.
Of course, we're not a tech podcast, and
no,
neither one of us.
Well, I think it would be ignorant for us to not even consider it, let alone, you know, I think it'd be a very big missed opportunity if we didn't discuss it once in a while.
Yeah.
Because there's all kinds of different technologies that are coming out that are worth discussing, the pros and cons and how that will affect us.
It's such a big part of our life. It really is. So.
Well, right now, the big part of our life is just, you know, staying occupied. So this is
especially, you know, now,
especially with this podcast. You know, we've been going 3 weeks strong so far. You know, I'm really enjoying it. I've got something to kind of just throw myself into. I'm always learning something new, always finding something else that catches my eye. You know, I found so many topics already. Like, I want to, you know, when we become a little more established, you know, because I've got a van idea that I'm planning. I know you know about it, but I don't think I've talked about it in the podcast. But I personally want to get a van. You know, right now I'm looking at a cheap minivan just, you know, to hold me over temporarily, so I at least have transportation. But the end goal is to get a van that I can fully modify the inside and go traveling. You know, I'd still be able to record on the road. You know, I'd work to make sure that the studio that I would build in place in the van would be capable of holding the same, or at least, you know, close to the same quality as we're striving for as time progresses. But this will allow, you know, new opportunities in the future to explore other things and create new content for the podcast. We could have, you know, and this is all just, you know, speculation, but we could probably have podcast where we'll have bonus content, like every Friday or something. We release a different special kind of episode, a bonus episode of an active investigation of a place, whether it's ghost or historical, you know, dive into whatever, you know, like playing hypothetical. I go to Penhurst, you know, asylum or something, and do like, you know, a 3-hour-long recording sessions there and talking about, you know, the institution and what I record and whatever have you. Or, you know, I could go to a certain famous museum, like I backpack across, you know, Europe, you know, and just, you know, keep feeding the same kind of content in. and it just opens up possibilities, and I feel would breathe new life into, what we do with this podcast. Because I know I've had my own goals for this, and this was an idea I came to you with when this was starting, and I'm so glad you show interest in it, because it helped encourage me to keep going. Because now I have this mindset of, okay, I can't mess this up, I can't fall behind, otherwise Vlad doesn't get to record, Vlad doesn't get to interact, and in part, it's true, but a lot of it is I don't get it done is the main thing. And it's a bigger kick in the ass for myself, which is why, outside of what we talk about on here, I've mentioned to you personally about, us working on building a schedule. So far, we've done okay, but the method we're using now may not work in 6 months, We could, rent a studio apartment that we use specifically for this, to record for a while. Who knows? I don't know where this is going to take us. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just open to a lot of possibilities. I know I've told you, Vlad, that I've also been talking to a lot of other people who have shown interest in helping. I have a friend of mine who is in a band, and I may get this wrong. I'm pretty sure, though, that his band is called Dire Rising. And if it's not, sorry, Nathan. I'll definitely get it right, but in the next upload. But he showed interest in, making an intro and outro for us, which was fantastic, I didn't have to, jump over hoops to try to convince him. I played you a small clip of an idea of what he had, and, what did you say?
That's pretty good. It's perfect, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, there are things we're looking at, things we're experimenting with. I have other friends that have shown interest in either helping to edit, the audio that we record, or, do some web design for the website whenever we get that up. I don't want to make any promises whenever we're not happy with something. And if we're not ready to click send right now, I don't want to make that promise that it's going to happen. I just want to say that we're trying. This is what we're seeing. And, you guys participating and, listening and spreading the word about us really helps. As always, we just recently, as in today, as of recording, we set up our Twitter and our Instagram. So another way to interact with us, it's always Files Obscura, same as our email. If there's ever personal stories or anything that you want to tell us, just go to filesobscura@gmail.com and message us, or you can go to our Twitter and tweet us. Or you can comment on any of our pictures that we upload in the future, or any Instagram lives that we might do in the future. Go on there and interact. All of it's File Obscura, or Files Obscura, FILES, and then Obscura, OSCUR. I'm tired. We've just about crossed the 2-hour mark of recording. Yeah, so it's catching up with me. But you know the name. So there's a lot we have planned for the future, but I don't want to say something and then it not come true. I don't even want to consider talking about merchandise yet, because we are far away from that right now. Or Patreon subscriptions, we are far away from that right now. We are just talking, about ways to interact with you guys and see if there's a way that you guys could tell us what you want, what you like to hear, and help, make this more something what you want to hear, We want to do what we want to do, but, I don't want to do it if no one's going to listen,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. That's all for me. You got anything else?
I'm pretty much done.
Yeah. We've both got things we got to do now. We did not plan on recording this long, but, it happened. I'm glad for this little change of pace. We'll figure out how frequently we'll do this, but next week's subject, it's going to be fun. Because guess what we're gonna talk about? Anything under the sun. Anything under the sun.
It's probably gonna be ghosts this time. I don't know.
It's not. I can tell you that right now.
Nothing supernatural?
Not yet. I do have supernatural things planned, but next week's is not.
Okay, all right.
It's a very big travesty that I did not know hardly anything about and only heard about recently.
Okay.
It's called Black Wall Street.
Oh, you told me about this.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before, but I wasn't sure whenever I was going to do it. But that's going to be next week's topic.
All right.
So, As always, we upload, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. So check out all of our new uploads. Currently, you can find us on Anchor. I believe you can also find us on Stitcher. We do seem to be on Spotify, but there's some accounts information that's wrong in there. And so I don't really want to push Spotify yet until I can fix our, accounts information. And with everything going on, it's kind of hard to talk to anybody who can control that, especially with the fact that, that only got pushed onto there through the Anchor app, which we currently are using. And so it's kind of hard to say, hey, this is me, this is my podcast, how can I go about changing this?
Yeah.
Because it didn't come straight from me. I don't have a prior history of talking to them. Hurdles, to fix. But when all that's up and, we get the website going, all that information will be there to find us. All that information to interact with us will be, easy to find in one place. But we've done and talked more than enough. I know everyone's got things to do, so we're going to go ahead and leave you all. We hope you had a wonderful time, expanded your mind and, encouraged you to think, ask some questions. We will see you guys next Tuesday. We love you all. Have a good one. Bye.